Hello. Residents in the Hill District have waited years to see the benefits from promised development. Now recent action should move the process along. We'll hear whether one community leader calls it progress. And a unique way to heal from the trauma of gun violence. We'll tell you all about the Faces of Resilience workshops. Plus, 100 black men of Western Pennsylvania are here, actually just a few of them, but they're telling us how they're helping to shape young people into next generation leaders. So pull up a chair and meet us at the corner. Intersection starts right now. Hello, I'm Lisa Smith, the Director of Community Impact at KDKA+, and the host of Intersections. 15 years, that's how long it's been since some major projects in the Hill District have been on the fence. Projects like the Curtain Call were supposed to showcase the neighborhood and its residents, but it has yet to materialize. That's just one of the community benefits that were supposed to come along with development of a music venue and parking garage in the neighborhood. Here to walk us through some of the latest developments is Marimba. She is the president and CEO of the Hill District CDC. Welcome back to Intersections.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, so obviously, you know, you've been watching a lot of this. You've been involved in some development, obviously, with the CDC. So the Sports Exhibition Authority and the Urban Redevelopment Authority both had meetings recently where they said, okay, yeah, let's go ahead with this project, but it's a little different than originally planned. So tell us kind of what is happening right now.
Sure. So the Lower Hill District is parceled into multiple sections in order to advance the development. Most people know that this site is historically important to our region and especially to Black Pittsburgh. It was once occupied by 8,000 residents. Who were more than 8,000 residents, 8,000 of whom were displaced, 2/3 of whom were African American. 430 businesses were moved, 1,000 buildings were demolished when they cleared over 100 acres of land in the Lower Hill District. And so we've been focused on making sure that the community benefits redress some of those historical wrongs, but also that it sets us on the right path for equitable development in the future. And so this current development is one block on the Lower Hill District. It used to be planned for a music and entertainment venue, specifically Live Nation, coupled with a 900+ parking space garage. Well, more recently, a few things have changed. The developer who was doing the whole site is not moving forward on the entertainment site. Live Nation and FSG, who's the owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins, are moving forward on the Live Nation venue, and the parking garage is stalled. Now, the challenge with that is because the whole block isn't moving forward, the community benefits that were promised for the whole block are also not moving forward at the same time. So that's what's going on. That gives you a sense of where we are, and that's called Block E on the Lower Hill.
Yeah, so talk about some of those community benefits that you were expecting that maybe are not happening as you expected them to happen.
Sure. So a couple, one, because of the way that our public hearings are set up for public agencies, we are still waiting to get the final vote and the resolutions that the board approved. They were not available to the public, at least they were not distributed in advance of the meeting, so we have requested to get some specific information. But more specifically, we have some concerns about the workforce hiring center, the First Source Hiring Center in particular, that was to be open near the location of the site. There was one that was open and then it closed. And so now it's only virtually available. And we know that that's an issue because digital access is an issue, as was cited in the Hill District just a few days ago when the federal government was here recognizing that there are several areas, including the Hill District, that need increased digital access. So remote workforce center is not ideal for the neighborhood. Also, we have questions about the minority and business participation that is going to be required. Now, we know what they say EORC requirements are. That's the Equal Opportunity Review Commission, but those standards are much lower than the Hill District community standards. And so we're looking to make sure that those community benefits match the community's goals, not the lower goals that the city oftentimes approves for minority development. Some of the other issues that we have is the home housing stabilization. fund that was supposed to come towards homes in the Hill District is no longer going on the table because, or at least at this time, because it was associated with the parking garage. So, and then the curtain call, of course, as you mentioned, is a major project for the community. This is an art and sustainability project, which is important because a lot of people think, oh, it's just public art, we'll figure that out. It's also a sustainability project, and it was started in 2009. And Hill District residents gave personal pictures, personal narratives, personal stories to the Penguins and the consultant that they hired, who is Walter Hood, one of the most critically acclaimed landscape architects in the world, and also an African American himself. So first it was in front of the arena, then they moved it, frankly, without community input, to Crawford and Wiley. And now, as of Thursday, they announced that they're going to move it back to in front of the arena.
So let me talk about that because I did have a chance to talk to Council President Lavelle about this, and so he gave me some information about this. And basically, he said that there were conversations about this within like a couple of months recently, up until like a day before that actual decision was made. He also told me that they do have some next steps where they want to bring people together to talk about updating the design as well as updating the cost, and also that the community did want it back where it is now. That was something that they heard a lot in some recent meetings, and also that he was hoping that it's possible to actually see this completed by next summer 2025. So when you hear all of that, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that, I think that that's not likely because I think that this project is likely to take more than a year to complete, just from a construction standpoint. You have to first complete financing, and you have to get it financing closed. And I think at this point, what's important is that the missing link has really been the Pittsburgh Penguins funding that they promised to the project. And so since 2009, over and over again, the cost for the project has increased, and the gap, therefore, for funding has also increased. But what has been consistent is the Pens have never put their part in. Right? And so now the project has increased. They've paid for design costs at 2 sites now, which is also money that could have been put towards the construction. And so I do have some concerns about that notion, and I also think that should have been discussed before a public hearing.
Yeah, so there was a meeting, we had talked about the meeting, and so at that meeting they talked about a lot of things, obviously. The Ammon Rec Center, there is money connected to that, but it is going to be, some of it will be delayed because of the parking structure. So let's take a listen to some of what they discussed regarding that part of the project.
Okay.
Reason that's acceptable to the city is because it falls in line with our sort of development schedule of when we could actually deliver that project in its totality. We've already had 1 or 2 community meetings around what the design would look like, what the design would be. We had it at Macedonia Baptist Church. So these things take time. And there are a number of other things here. There's the $2 surcharge that they've agreed to that is going to be put into a special fund to support the Hill District. But all these things were agreed to many, many years ago, but none of them can come to fruition until we actually have a development.
So that's, you were at that meeting, so you heard some of that. We're pretty much out of time, but in terms of being able to see all of this happen, what do you think that some of it will, or the majority of it will happen?
Oh, I think that things will happen as the Pens and the developers are held accountable. I do want to recognize that Live Nation and the Pens have done some things that they promised associated with the last round of developments, but they have not done some of the other critical items that remained outstanding. And so I think it's up to our public officials and our public agencies to hold them accountable and to not allow it to get delayed further and further out, which means that it's very difficult to then enforce it in the future.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have, but definitely this is an ongoing conversation, so we'll definitely stay in touch. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
All righty.
Alrighty.
Well, coming up, a way to help gun violence victims heal from their trauma by creating and removing their masks. You're watching Intersections. Well, more and more people have a personal experience with gun violence, and many of them live with the trauma of that experience while trying to go on with their everyday lives. Well, a special project is kicking off in Pittsburgh at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center. It's called Faces of Resilience Workshop for Survivors of Gun Violence. So here to tell us about the program are Tia Baker. She's the Executive Director of Project Safe Storage. Dr. Lois Dabney Smith is a nationally recognized psychotherapist, and Kia Adams is the Education and Community Engagement Manager at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center. Welcome, ladies, to Intersections.
Thank you.
So when I heard this idea, I saw it on the website, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And Tia, you kind of started the ball rolling. So tell me a little bit about how this all got started.
So as you mentioned, Project Safe Storage is an organization that I started simply because gun violence is rampant in our community. And our mission really is about educating people on the importance of responsible firearm ownership. And in doing that, of course, we come across people who have been victims of gun violence and survivors, myself as well. And so in knowing that and seeing that, I thought it was necessary that we actually, there's another side to this, right? There's another side. There's people who are also victims, but don't necessarily get to talk about that, don't necessarily get to heal from it in the way that is in community. Things happen in community, gun violence happens in community, and we need to heal in community. So I was just inspired to do something for survivors, right?
Yeah. So you reached out to Dr. Lois Dabney Smith, and kind of what did you guys discuss in terms of how to make this happen?
Oh my goodness.
Well, I want to say that it was divine. I just want to say it was divine because I actually have taken part in her workshops, but that was probably 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had not seen her. And then she appeared instantly. And, you know, it didn't have anything to do with what we're doing now, but I remembered in what I wanted to do that this was a perfect way to do that. And so I talked to her about it and asked her if she would be interested in partnering with me, and she said yes. And so here we are.
So Dr. Dabney Smith, tell us a little bit about the mask making and what that process is and what it does in terms of releasing trauma.
It's a very intimate process. The mask is actually, you partner up and you have your partner make a mask on your face. You, of course, lubricate it well because you know those little hairs around our hairline with Vaseline, and then you use surgical gauze tape in strips to outline the face and the features. You actually can capture your features quite well with the gauze. And then if you want to, you can adorn them with paints and jewels and feathers and to tell your story. So that's what it's like.
And what is the, what happens when people do that?
Anytime you use any kind of art at all, you reduce your stress and increase your resilience because it takes you away from what you're feeling, what you're thinking. You're involved in something, whether that's music or sculpture or mask making. And so if you can reduce your stress, then you're on your way to healing.
Yeah. And was it you that told me, or did I read it somewhere, that sometimes trauma resides inside you, like it kind of deposits?
It does. It's in your system almost forever. If it's not processed out, if you aren't in therapy or find some way to get rid of it, it's ingrained in us forever and ever and ever. But it's not a death sentence because you can heal from trauma. And that's what we're about through the arts, through music and journaling and movement and art creation, mask making.
And Kia, you know, you're bringing this to the August Wilson African American Culture Center. Why did you want to bring this project there?
I think that, you know, with the August Wilson African American Cultural Center, we offer so much in our programming in regards to the arts and entertainment. And when we think about August Wilson's legacy and how he encouraged community through many of his plays, we just felt like this was a beautiful fit. We can facilitate healing in a way that's artful and creative, and open up the floor for people to have discussions together and, you know, come together in community, which was one of the, you know, overarching themes in a lot of August's work, and a part of his legacy was to keep the community together.
Yeah.
And what happens when it's not? We're so happy to have Tia and Dr. Lois Dabney here to, you know, facilitate this beautiful, beautiful project.
Yeah. Well, we want to tell everybody when this is happening, and obviously it's at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center, but you have 3 sessions coming
Yes.
up, right? What are those dates?
So the dates for the sessions are August 3rd and 4th. From 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., September 14th and 15th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. as well, and then October 26th and 27th. We'll also have a panel discussion on December 14th, and the workshops are for ages 18 plus, and meals are provided.
And it's free, right?
Yes, this is free of charge, free and open to the community.
And then people can go to the website to register to attend, right?
Absolutely. If you go to awaacc.org/events, you'll find the sign up, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like an amazing event, and
Yes.
you know, hopefully a lot of people will come through and be able to take advantage of it and get healing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, coming up, local men mentoring young kids and bringing up future leaders. Intersections. We'll be right back. Well, for 38 years, 100 Black Men of Western Pennsylvania has been working with and mentoring youth to help develop them into the next generation of leaders. The Pittsburgh chapter was one of the first chapters formed when the New York-based organization expanded nationally. Joining me today to talk more about their history and what they're doing now are Emmanuel Key, he is the chapter treasurer, Michael Carlisle is the mentoring chair, and Richard Taylor is also a member of the chapter. Welcome, gentlemen, to Intersections.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So, Michael, tell me a little bit about 100 Black Men, how it started, and how it actually started here in Pittsburgh.
100 Black Men of America started in 1963 as a result of some political unrest that was happening at that time. Former Mayor Dinkins and Jackie Robinson were some of the notables who actually helped launch the organization. The 100 Black Men of Western Pennsylvania is a part of the national, became a part of the national organization that started 38 years ago. Some names that you may know in Pittsburgh that helped launch the 100 Black Men of Western Pennsylvania is Dr. Leon Haley, who was a former director of the Urban League, and Herman Reed, Dr. Herman Reed, formerly of Need, and also Lonnie Husbeth, one of my mentors, and a former colleague at BNY Mellon, is the founding president of the 100 Black Men of Western Pennsylvania. So that's how we got started here in Pittsburgh.
And you're leaving yourself out because you were also part of that group.
I was a part of that group. I was recruited in by Dr. Lonnie Husbeth, who's now teaching in the Virgin Islands, brought me into the organization, and I've been there from the beginning until the present day.
Yeah.
And Brother Ron Lawrence.
And Brother Ron Lawrence as well.
So, you know, you do a lot with the young people here in the community. Emmanuel, tell me though what it gives you, you know, as you're helping to mentor and work with young people here in town.
What it gives me for working with the young people is a sense of gratitude in terms of giving back. Growing up in Detroit originally, my family and my parents instilled upon me the sense of service and being able to share your gifts and your your treasures with others. And the best part about it, I've coached athletics for years, but the best part about it is when you work with the children and that light bulb goes on and they actually get what you're saying, and sometimes they regurgitate what you told them. That to me is worth gold.
Yeah.
You know, I would also add to that just a sense of hope for the future. You know, if you believe everything you see on the news about our young people, you would think that there really isn't a lot of bright lights there. But working with these young people and seeing, you know, as Emmanuel said, when the lights come on and you hear that what you're pouring into them is really taking root, it's really exciting to see the brilliance that they have.
Yeah, and you know, over the years, I would think that you've seen them kind of grow before your eyes, develop before your eyes. Tell me a little bit about maybe one of the youth that you guys have worked with, who you've seen them, you know, maybe go off to college or start a career, and how you think that reflects on what you guys poured into them.
If I may, there's one story that kind of sticks out. At a national conference, we had a young lady, a former student at Shinley High School. Her name is Lisa Younger, and she was a young teenage mother, the first in our organization. Lisa wanted to be an engineer, and she was determined not to let, you know, one mistake that she made hold her back from achieving her goals. At the national convention, BET at the time brung down their cameras and shot a segment of Teen Summit. And just so happens that teen pregnancy came up, you know, and many of the students were kind of downing, you know, young people who walk that life, walk that path. And of course, it brought something out in Lisa, and she began to share her story. Fast forward, there's one breakfast that the students themselves take control of. Lisa got an opportunity to write a speech, but in the middle of the speech, she stopped. And she began just to tell her story, her journey, and that, again, although she was a mother, she had a goal of becoming an engineer, and she was not going to let anything deter her from that. As you can imagine, when she got done, there was not one dry eye in the audience. And when she got done, a number of people from the organization came up to speak with her. Today, Lisa is an engineer.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Some of that word comes from the money that you guys raised. I know you have a big golf outing coming up. We're going to put some information on our screen, and they can go to your website. It is going to be on August 5th at the South Point Golf Club, and we will make sure that people can still register, I understand.
Yes.
We're going to have that information also on our website. Thank you all so much for being with us. We really appreciate it, and continued great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And I'll have my last word when we come back. Healing. It's pretty miraculous how the cells in our bodies rush to the scene of an emergency and immediately surround an injury. But everybody heals differently. What works for one case may not work for another, so we have to pay attention to our bodies and our minds so that we understand what helps us and heals us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Intersections.